Good evening and welcome to the New Athens. You need to emerge from this COVID-1984 pandemic with the tools to create a new world. The New Athens, the blockchain think tank, brings you those tools to understand the chaos swirling around us and the forum to debate how a new generation will take control from the GoVidiots currently mismanaging our nation and our world with a breakaway civilization leaving us behind. Watch our Friday Night Lights live stream from the bunker on the New Athens YouTube channel for the best that is thought and said on the issues of the day. Ask not what the New Athens can do for you. Ask what you can do for the New Athens. If you like it, leave a like. If you like the content, please subscribe and share. I'm Lorenzo Mefsud, founder of the New Athens. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. And welcome. Hey, welcome to the New Athens. And we're here today, back in the bunker after 6 months or so, with season 2, episode 1, the premiere. And we have here with us Russ Rossi, long-term friend of the show and friend of the New Athenian movement. And we wanted to welcome him back to Britain after such a long time away. I think it was, December 2019 you were last here?
I think probably February 2020.
Oh, yes, yeah. Yes. So shortly after that, we saw you around the election and Boris Johnson's election now. It's a long time, feels like a long time ago. And we've had a lot going on in the world since. We came down to the bunker. We set up a studio.
And what a beautiful bunker it is, I have to say, Lorenzo. Beautiful bunker here.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. Well, we have some of our in-house portraitist, Philip Firsov here, some of his art we have, who was done live the other night at Christabel's Club, very successful new venture you see in Fitzrovia. We must come down every Thursday night. You'll be welcome, and you'll have your painting taken, and you'll be able to imbibe a whole lot of substances in secret as a kind of speakeasy. Like, well, where are we today? You know, Al Capone, Canadian club. He was violating the Volstead. He was standing up to the Volstead Act and saying no. You know, alcohol must be consumed. And then in the past 6 months, we've become the purveyors of a new kind of prohibition. The prohibition of seeing your friends, the prohibition of not of alcohol, but of being in the same room as somebody. And like this was entirely illegal for a long time in our last season. So we were fighting a good fight. Today's episode is called Pandemonia. And we've seen a lot of pandemonium, all the demons in coming out of the woodwork in recent months and the past year or so. But also, I noticed that pandemia is the Russian term for a pandemic. So it's very much like pandemia, yes. And same with Greek. And so pandemia. We have
in Italy they call it mamma mia.
And
democratic.
yes. In Bergamo and in Urbino, yes.
Republic.
So one thing I think we were looking at the other day, we were speaking about, was notions of sort of trusting the plan and how what we see for the future. I think there are some people out there who have gotten used to the kind of Pavlovian control of you take your vaccine, you present your credentials when you go outside, things that in America and in Canada and Britain never would have been possible, a year or two ago. And we've had the bell ringing for Pavlov's dogs, and then we who accept all this command and control through their smartphones and through all this tracking and tracing, which you've been experiencing recently.
I think one of the things that is most remarkable is how much or how easily people follow these rules. And I think that this period is going to go down in history. They'll be studying it to see that the government, and I think probably even surprised the government as to how easily everybody followed all the commands. And of course, if you have some of the countries like Canada and now the US and other countries that are a bit more sort of left-leaning, they like to have that control. They like to protect some people and think they make better decisions than the average person. And what happens next is people start following the rules, and they become like sheep. and no one questions anything, and it's actually remarkable. And you suddenly become a pariah if you. Well, should we be doing this? What do you mean, should we be doing this? And whether it's social media, whether it's the mainstream media, you actually get shunned from society by asking intelligent questions simply out of logic or just even query why are we doing this? So it's been a I'm seeing in different countries, especially in my own country, Canada, where I can't even go back to Canada now. I've been vaccinated, I've like umpteen negative tests, but still when I go back to Canada, I've got to quarantine for 14 days. And I don't even understand all this. We're now in a third wave after having all of these vaccinations. So if the vaccination works, then why are we having another lockdown? And if it doesn't work, then why are we having another lockdown?
Logic is the
vaccination.
Yeah, no, the lockdowns, I'd rather say. The vaccinations and the lockdowns. Everyone's there's vaccinated. So many people are now vaccinated. They keep trying. They keep enacting lockdowns, and they're either working or they're not. But I see that the pulse of London is starting to vibrate again. People are out and about. I think people are kind of fed up, and they're out there. Even we watched last night at Leicester Square with all the Scots out celebrating the game.
And it was a draw.
Yeah, I know, which I was puzzled about. But anyway, there's people. London is picking up again, and it's good to see that.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think maybe your notion of this sort of spiraling out of control of information logic, it really resonated with me. There's this line from 1984 by George Orwell. The past was alterable. The past never had been altered. Oceania was at war with East Asia. Oceania had always been at war with East Asia. So they swapped their alliances, East Asia and Eurasia and Oceania. And there's a constant war between these powers in 1984. It's happening for so long that nobody remembers whether it was the Indian variant or the Delta variant or the Kent variant or the, you can see this logic coming in. And I think from our discussions about Stand Up to Woke in the past few days, we've also, we've been working out some campaigns behind the scenes, and it's going to be very exciting in the next few weeks. But what we can see is this kind of breakdown of language, which I think Orwell was so good at, because people's thoughts are inflected by the words they use and the way they construct sentences. And now there are so many sentences you can't say and so many words you can't use. And actually, now we're seeing a situation where, new tech, we're doing new wireless tech. We're seeing a situation where you don't have the word to say the thought. So the thought gets robbed of you.
Yes. And the left are very wily because they keep repeating the same phrases over and over. They believe that repetition is truth. So they keep saying it over and over, and then you almost start believing it, like being interrogated in the Second World War or in the Korean War. 1984, it rings a little bell. I had a nice debate with a gentleman the other night about 84, and I was laughing about Apple because I don't know if you recall it, but there was a very famous commercial that Apple did when they first came out, where it was basically a play on 1984.
The Matrix
break the mold. Remember the lady walks in, the guy walks in with a big with a sledgehammer or something and breaks the screen.
Yeah.
It was basically saying, don't conform, be different. And that was the Apple coming out, right?
Yes.
Well, here we are, 20 years later, and
that was 1984. That was in 1984.
In 1984. Yes. In 1984, but it was the Apple commercial.
Yeah. So that was
now
Apple. 36, yes.
Apple is now one of the ones that are trying to control the population. They have become Big Brother. Okay?
Yes.
Or they're part of the Big Brother community, the mainstream media and the and
corporate
tech,
elites,
corporate tech, right?
Yes.
And by altering what's on. I don't know if you follow what goes on your phone devices, but they actually only they send news to you, they send messages to you. There's a couple movies about this recently that have been exposed by whistleblowers. But the media and the news that comes to your phone when you check is media and news that you like. They know whether you want to see a bit of right-wing news or something a bit right-tilted, or they know if you like Donald Trump, and they'll show you pro-Donald Trump stuff. Or if you hate him, they'll show you hate Donald Trump stuff. And so it's very Pavlovian, where you keep looking at your phone and you're getting positive stimulation, right? Mm-hmm. Reinforcing your beliefs, reinforcing. You might have but also it's helping to fuel tribalism, because you're now having your beliefs super reinforced. And then you meet someone else who could be opposite of you with their beliefs super reinforced. And these tribes are being created where there's more pent up anger, more pent up resentment. And it's not leading to harmony which society should be.
What's happening in Canada? I mean, you see on the one hand Trudeau, the male model, kind of the globalist aesthetic of right-on statements and then little work on the economy on one side, and then you've got like Dr. Jordan Peterson and his campaigning on the other side as two things we see coming out of Canada from across the water. How do you find it by the lakeside?
Well, I mean, first of all, Trudeau has a minority government. Okay, I think only 32% of Canada voted for him, right?
Yeah,
and he's driving the capitalists, the businessmen, the moneymakers of society crazy. In order for him to maintain his government, he has to have these are rough numbers, but he has to have a coalition. So he has a coalition with the NDP party. So the NDP party really ends up being able to pull his strings a little bit like a puppet. And because if certain legislation is not passed or certain laws aren't enacted, then they will withdraw the support of the Liberal Party, and he would lose his power. So really, even though we have a Liberal government, it's almost more of an NDP government. And so you're seeing a lot of very, very anti-business legislation. I mean, they're pulling pipelines, they're pulling gas lines, they're giving tons of money to the Aboriginals. They're giving tons of money. I mean, just giving money away. Every single possible woke thing that you can think of times two, and they find more each day, is being focused. That's the focus of our government now, rather than making the economy strong.
Politics.
It's I have so many friends that are. I mean, he's totally abandoned some of the resources of Canada that are that we're so rich with per capita. We have like 30-40 million people. We have some of the largest supplies of oil, some of the largest supplies of natural gas, largest supplies of minerals, largest supplies of fresh water.
Yes. Lumber.
Not allowed to. We're not allowed to harvest any of that.
60% inflation. I think there's. I heard from Tim Pool the other day on Tim Pool's podcast. He was looking at the real inflation of 2020, and he was saying, look at the prices of upstream in the supply chain, which Canada really participates in with all of its.
I'll give you an example. We do building. 35 a sheet of plywood.
Yeah.
Do you call it plywood over here?
Yeah.
Sheet of plywood was $34 1 year ago. What is that? 28 quid.
Yes.
Okay? It's now $78. Okay?
Yes.
The cost of building a house, just the cost of building the house, has doubled.
Yeah, or repairing. Yes. I heard that statistic, and I thought, okay, we were talking at the start of the last season, back in sort of March last year, about please respect the farmers. Don't let the farmers forget to plant the crops, because we're in this kind of hypnosis now, where the whole of the economy is ground to a halt, and you have to do social distancing on farmland or whatever, and now they're not chopping the trees down. They don't have the lumber, which is why the timber is then going up 60%, as you say, in price. So there's the real inflation. So as a job creator, as a businessman, how do you feel about the kind of inflation of fiat money and so on? Because so many people measure in the currency. So the currency is a yardstick. It's as if the ruler is of 30 centimeters is changing in length, and so people don't see that. For instance, with that lumber thing, and you noticed it because of house building. So
prices here are higher too. I love your shoes over here, English shoes. Here's an example. I mean, and this is just one of many. The church's shoes have gone up by almost 30%. So, like a 400-pound pair of shoes, a nice pair of shoes, are now like 575. And so I asked the gentleman, I said, why have they gone up so much? Oh, it's COVID. So, I mean, like a famous line in the Democratic Party in the U.S., they say, never let any crisis go to waste. Okay.
Yes.
The government loves crises.
What did Blair say? A good day to bury bad news. No, I think that's Alistair Campbell on 9/11.
100%, right? So I think that some of the manufacturers and some of the retailers could be using that for a bit of excuse as well. So say, well, yeah, the prices have gone up, but we could also even inch up a bit more because of COVID.
Chips, so like microchips. There's a shortage because 100%. The supply chain couldn't deal with more people buying more stuff for their houses while they were in a middle-class lockdown. Yeah. So they wanted to do home improvements. And so then they have chips in the dishwasher and chips
automobiles,
in the
same thing.
Dustbin.
Automobiles are backed up because they can't get the chips for the automobiles.
Yes. Yeah. So we're seeing this kind of crunch time where the Suez Canal gets blocked. That ship, right? I looked at the satellite. There were 1.5 ship widths between the prow of that ship and either of the banks of the Suez when it fishtailed and supposedly crashed. Now, if you're China and you're doing a one belt, one road policy and you're going both ways around the equator, what better way to assert your dominance than to say, well, Suez is blocked, all of our shipping's backed up. Why don't you use our other crossing in Panama, which they've just completely bought out in the ass of the United States? China's massively done one belt, one road in Panama. And so, of course, the psyop was good, though, because then they said, oh, it's Egypt's one woman ship pilot. She crashed it into the side. And of course, she was out of the country. And so there's a nice layering you can see of the psyop and the propaganda and getting this energy away and making people not focus on the real thing, which is this is a big global play of blocking the Suez Canal. Just click, and someone's got a renminbi account nicely full, for the backhander for that little crash. And so then the whole of the supply chain is backed up. It's like we're forgetting how to work our own infrastructure.
I think that I liken this to a household where a family has a crisis where income stops, but he has several credit cards that have nothing on it, but then have nice limits. Yeah. So he starts feeding his family,
putting food on his family.
First a little bit, a little bit at first and more. And he racks up one credit card to its max. Then he racks up another one. And I guess now he's on his third credit card, and nothing's changed. Nothing's changed except the debt on his credit card. Yeah. Now, I use that example because a lot of people could relate to that. But if you want to look at it macroeconomically, it's very much like that, where at some point you got to pay those credit cards back, okay? And how they get paid back can be in a multitude of ways. But for sure, there will be pressure on that gentleman when it comes time to pay the piper. And so how's that pressure going to unfold is what worries a lot of people. It worries business people, it worries the tax people. And you're going to see, people that pay taxes rather, and there's going to be an unraveling. And I'm not sure which way it's going to go yet. I don't think anyone is. There have been some positive surprises in terms of COVID, where people have stayed home and they spent more money in the economy. Yeah. They've saved travel money, and that's helped bolster the local economies. Yeah. But there's been some negative ones too, where certain businesses have been closed down. I have friends that have lost their restaurants. I have mining companies that have lost their mines. So we know that all politicians have lost their minds. And it's you're heading first, people. So that's what worries. That's what worries me. It worries me that right now we're kind of like in La La Land, where I still have a bit of limit left on my credit card. I haven't really noticed anything yet. It seems seamless. But behind the scenes, it's just like the greedy banks are getting their 29-30% on the credit card. Someone's going to pay the piper, and it's going to give the government another license to invoke control and rules, increase taxes. We must increase the taxes. We must do this. We must get rid of free house. Basically squeeze every single nickel out of anyone that has any wealth. Okay, and forgetting the fact that a lot of the people that are wealthy actually create jobs. The backbone of all Western economies is the small business. Small business is the biggest part of the economy. So never ever underestimate the value of the entrepreneur, the value of the home business. And if you look it up, just Google it, you'll see it's way bigger than anything else. Okay, and that is they're the ones that are being squeezed right now. And in order for the government to pay off their credit cards, they're going to have to squeeze them some more, and that's going to cause a flight of capital, a flight of citizens, and a hidden economy. A hidden economy, just like you talked about earlier on when you talked about Al Capone. Okay, yes. Al Capone is simply the result of a fundamental aspect. If anyone that's taken economics 100, what's a fundamental aspect of the economy? Is if you try to legislate against a natural economy, all you do, a natural market rather, if you legislate against a natural market, all you do is create a black market. Yeah, happens since the history of the world. Okay,
as you can see, the war on drugs, war on
prostitution, war on alcohol, war on social distancing. All you do. You cannot legislate a natural market, and you must go with the market. Now, recently, actually, in Canada, a good example of that, they've capitulated, and now cannabis is legal.
Yes, okay? which you've been to be.
Yeah, I'm actually a cannabis retailer, and what happens is they've now created a whole new revenue stream for themselves. Yes, and they've depleted the black market because people are now gravitating from the black market to the white market. And can I say white market? Can I say white market?
Oh, yes,
sure.
Well,
careful.
Yes.
Ding, ding. Also, a hook comes up and pulls me out. No.
Does anybody like a beer?
I wouldn't mind some water, please. Okay, right? If there is any left in the world.
So yes, you were saying that actually you can't legislate against this natural market, and that's a very good
I was actually quoting that's actually an axiom in economics, right?
Yes,
that you cannot legislate.
Yes,
against, whenever you legislate against a natural market, a black market occurs.
So we can see that with the Volstead Act. You know, we could see that with then how that created not only Al Capone but also the Kennedys, the Bushes. You know, Prescott Bush and Joseph Kennedy were big bootleggers themselves, and they were kind of creating the political architect and infrastructure and architecture for the import of Canada Club and so on down the coast.
You're looking at prostitution. They legislated against prostitution forever, right?
Yes.
And this struck a note with me when I was visiting Pompeii recently, not in this original form. And they had, and about every second street had a phallic symbol, which was a sign for a brothel. I mean, Pompeii is littered with brothels.
Yes.
And like more than I've ever, I go, gee, so, you know, this is not a new concept.
Lupinaria is the wolf.
Yeah, exactly.
They had all the paintings, and then they took them all to the archaeological museum. It's the best place to see them.
Okay.
So if you go to the archaeological museum, you see they had a cult of the phallus. You see,
they had one, and that was a symbol for the brothel, right?
Yeah.
But
well, it was a good luck symbol. It was a good luck charm. So young girls would have a little necklace with a phallic talisman.
It actually is.
Go to sleep.
It actually is a good luck symbol still to this day
for
a lot of women.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. So we live in this repression. We create new black markets, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's drugs, whether these things are natural. People want to be able to trade. People want to be able to. Every civilization, every society has had recreational drugs, and the question is, how healthy can they be, and how regulated can they be? We've had friends very recently, friends of the show, who've died of poisoned supplies of recreational substances, and you know, the key is tax, regulate, and bring it into a white market, as you say.
It's always a struggle between control and a push back from control, right?
Because all you're doing is creating gangsters. You're creating violence, because the money that you get from the illicit trade is going into violence, is going to human trafficking and so on.
Yeah. So and that's what's happening. I think when you see some of the rules and regulations in the COVID under COVID, you see that. But also don't forget, the governments enjoy control because of, not only does do they think they're protecting the masses from maybe could be the evil businessman or the person who maybe is a bit smarter than the average person. So they figure, if we can put some rules in place and we'll protect everybody, and it would be a safer world if we put some barriers, walls, rules in place. And you know what? There is a place for that. But if it goes too far,
yes,
then you're really being oppressive, and it's like, and they don't see it that way though. They're being goodwill, and you're always going to have people that are going to be fighting that. And I mean, look, what's Bitcoin really coming? Bitcoin is a result of people wanting to finance outside of the clutches of the big banks, which really is
and the central banks issuing the currencies.
And they're saying, fine, we'll do our own. So now they're going to be scrambling. They're going to be I mean, the governments and the banks will be scrambling to figure out a way to control that. Okay.
Well, Bitcoin has been quite an interesting experiment in liberty, because it has a new concept. It articulates a new concept of how to organize people. The idea of the emergent system. So if you look at the world religions, they're kind of nihilistic. They say we're all sinners and we're all going to die, and there's a clockwork universe which has us like a puppet on a string, and maybe we have some free will, but essentially there's a cycle of life. We're all sinners, and that's kind of this nihilistic view. There can be no better. The human doesn't change. Then you have the ideologies of the 19th and 20th centuries, which say let's improve the human. Like whether it's fascism or communism or from whatever side of the political spectrum, you see and the Volstead Act too. This idea that people could be made to not drink alcohol. This idea has come about of improving the morality of people. So you re-engineer the man, and you say this has got to be a better man. And so you come to this idea of, so we're going to eliminate these people because they're not the better man. And that leads us down the road to gulags and concentration camps and so on, which we've seen throughout the 19th and 20th centuries. So these both religion is kind of nihilistic. It says that nothing's ever going to change. The poor will always be with us. And then there was this reaction against it, thesis, antithesis of the ideology, which says, let's improve the human. And now
Break the walking stick.
with
Break the walking
Bitcoin,
stick.
we've got, and with the blockchain, we potentially have this third way, this synthesis, which says, instead of trying to yank the moral compass of man and say, okay, well, here's good, I'm going to yank your moral compass against your will and make you do good, or make you aspire to it. What the Bitcoin algorithm realized was that it's a self-organizing principle, like ants in an anthill, where if you allow a free marketplace of ideas, if you allow everybody to make their own selfish decisions, i.e., I want to trade and I want to make sure that my trade is not disrupted by central bank actor, regulator, evil businessman, gangster,
disrupted or monitored.
Or monitored, exactly. Then actually, in aggregate, with people around the world, if you've got a devoted democracy, if everybody's voting for their own best interests of, I want my transactions to work, so I want a union on the one side and a regulator on the other to make sure that we're all participating together, then in aggregate of making all these decisions, all these individual little decisions in a free marketplace of ideas, you don't say, okay, we're going to pull the moral compass into alignment, which has all this death and destruction with that rotation. Instead, you say, well, let's put the public good in the face of where the moral compass points anyway. And so you let these people's selfish decisions turn into aggregate regulated.
100%, yes, you're correct. But I mean, there's nothing to do with. Why do you think the banks and the government are against Bitcoin? It has nothing to do with moral compass. Because they can't get their power of flesh.
Exactly. Yes.
People, you and I can start doing transactions, and they don't know who it is. We don't even know who we are. We're numbers.
Yes.
You lose your password, you lose your count.
Yes.
So now I can start doing $100,000 transactions with you, and right now they're unmetered, untaxed, unknown.
Yes. Yes.
And that's what scares the crap out of them. And suddenly the people are saying, you know what? I think some of the taxes you're doing are unfair. A famous man once said, you know how much tax a wealthy man pays? What he thinks is fair. Because you can't keep taxing and taxing and taxing, because at some point they push back and they go, hey, you know what? I need to move out of this country, or I'll need to move here, or I'll move to a floating boat. One of the things they say in the media all the time that drives me crazy, that, they say, look at Warren Buffett. He pays less tax than anyone else. What they're really saying is he pays less tax rate. He does not pay less tax. This guy pays zero tax. What about all the companies he has, or all the things that he does that pay tax? He generates. You have to look at the tax quotient maybe for any individual. Where if I have $1 billion of income and I pay 12% tax, I'm still paying 120 million or whatever that comes to. That's a big number.
Yeah.
But people get upset because they're only paying 12%. Well, we enjoy discounts all over the world all the time, right? If I pay more, I get a bit of a discount.
Should we look at productivity as well, though? I mean, so if you look at Warren Buffett, he's a repo man, right? He's a private equity guy. He breaks up
as an example.
But the past 50 years, we've been a repo man. We've been dispossessing and deconstructing our own civilization, our own industry. If you look at Mao and Kissinger in 1971, they carved up the world and said, look, we're going to take all the industry over to China. We're going to re-import plastic back. And we're going to have this kind of the cycle across the Pacific where America gets evacuated, and the north of Britain, as we saw with Brexit, gets evacuated too. All the industry comes to China. They make cheap plastic. They re-import it. And that's how they get the dollars out, because the dollar is the reserve currency. We didn't get the bancor of John Maynard Keynes, who said that we should have an international settlement currency in the settlement bank. And so they made it the dollar. And so the dollar had to be then disseminated so people could buy back the oil. So you've got to have a trade deficit from the US out to get the dollars out of the central bank. So China gets all of these dollars from its plastic, and then it buys back the US national debt, and they come into this death spiral together. Have you seen the Triceratops and the Velociraptor, who are like wrapped in combat forever? That's America and China in the sort of Ouroboros system.
And I think America did a deal with the Arabs as well, where they provide military assistance and backing to Saudi Arabia in return for the U.S. Oil always being priced in America. Sorry, oil being priced in American dollars, which helps support the U.S. dollars.
Well, that was the end of Saddam Hussein. He was trading oil in euros, and Gaddafi was trading oil in gold.
The way the U.S. economy is going right now, some of the spending that's occurring. I mean, they're getting pressure, and the fact that they're going against oil, they're getting countries like China lobbying and saying, listen, we should price it in a different currency. Let's price it in euros. Let's price it in the yen.
And in a basket of renminbi.
And then you see watch what happens to the American dollar.
Well, they can't bomb China in the way that they bombed Iraq and Libya when they went off the dollar standard and went onto the euro standard and the gold standard respectively. And with Bitcoin again, you can't bomb Bitcoin because it's not in a physical country. You can't say it's a rogue state. It's inside the cities of the existing civilization. Exactly. So it's an emergent property. So we were concerned that maybe the lockdown was going to be whether people were in their houses, they're going to find the blockchainers and take them out, because it was like they'd let it run for 10 years.
Yes.
And it's got this anchor into the bedrock of truth, these hard to hack 10 years of transactions, which is very difficult to spend the energy in your hydroelectric dam or your geothermal power plant to undo all of the wallets and undo all of the hey, how are you? Undo all the transactions and then hack into the ledger of truth.
There's also super anonymity. So unless it depends how you actually even bought your first initial Bitcoin. Sometimes that's untraceable. You pay cash or paid wire from a anonymous account.
Yeah.
They can trace it. So in some cases, if you did a solid wire from a charge card or something, then they probably ultimately could find out where it came from.
Yes.
But if some of the people that are super clever and interested in anonymity, you can't trace them. It's simply a number, and nobody knows who owns that number except for the person that has the number.
Yes, pseudonymity at least, if not anonymity.
100%.
Have you seen Pretty Woman?
Just the movie.
Yeah, I saw it recently, and I was really impressed about how it's a kind of parable for our times. It's like 1991, right? And who is Richard Gere? He's a repo man. He's a private equity guy. Right, and
I love that exactly.
He's ripping up.
Actually, a very good business, a very good business there lesson as well, right?
Yeah. So he's ripping up these companies and he's tearing apart dynasties and he's tearing apart what people have done for their careers. The guy who's got the shipyard, this is the big case. George Costanza from Seinfeld is saying, just tear them, you asshole. And he has the lady, he has the pretty woman saying, you don't build anything. What do? You live in this penthouse and you just tear things down. I want a man that builds something. And he sort of goes away and thinks about it. And then he wins her heart. And in doing so, he fires George Costanza and actually punches him out of the room when he tries to assault the lady. And then he goes to the shipyard area and he says, look, I want to build ships in the Hudson River. I want us to revive this. It's a kind of fantasy parable about if the Mao Nixon system were to be reversed by chivalry, by the love of a woman, by the wish of a woman that we should build something rather than tear down what we have. And so maybe that's the energy which is now coming to this kind of like the bitter end. Well, we've been doing it since like 1970, right?
Well, speaking of bitter end, and first of all, I love that movie, which is really kind of a it's Pygmalion incarnate, right? Which really was so Pygmalion. Then it was My Fair Lady.
Yes.
And then then Pretty
Woman was the next.
Where he creates the
statue
into a lovely woman, falls in love with her. But my favorite line is also when they were negotiating, and she wants I guess she wants $2,500 or something.
Yeah.
And he says, okay, fine. Fine. And she says, well, I would have taken $2,000. He goes, well, I would have paid $3,000. Great business negotiation.
Yes.
There, right.
Yeah.
But 100%.
Big ask.
But on top of that, I bet you pretty soon that movies like that'll be banned. I mean, the woke might not like that movie. How she's, she becomes she's a working class objectifying her.
I love being objectified.
Well,
it's like you walk into the room and somebody gives you value just for the notion in their mind of what you might be without even knowing yet.
Well, at the risk of sounding sexist, they notice how, in terms of objectifying themselves, women making money on the internet for perhaps less than moral behavior, you could say, are making way more money than men are. And they're certainly not mad about it. So now that when they objectify themselves and make thousands of dollars each day, they're now not complaining so much about it.
But that's a free marketplace of ideas, 100%. Right? So it's saying
class war, though, it's also about education. She has to be able to be elocuted, so she can't be a cockney anymore. And this comes back to the Greek story. And the Greek myth is that he creates a statue and then falls in love with her, and she's an ideal woman. So it's about ideal woman vis-a-vis ideal lady in a class society, which is no longer valid.
So, the society now, the woke want us to be homogeneous.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. So they don't even want men or women, and they don't want parents. There shouldn't be. I mean, everyone should just be unisex, right?
Yes.
And I don't know who's driving this, but obviously,
so Alex Jones has been right about a lot.
People that are good looking, they're driving it.
And And so, he was right about the Wuhan virus. He was right about Fauci and how he combined the bat viruses with the HIV delivery system, which Fauci had been studying, and so on. We've heard a lot about this in the past year. We're doing a lot of medical focus on the previous season.
As a way to sell AZT, which he couldn't sell to cancer people because it was too dangerous for cancer people. So he created the
Druid wizard. He's been manipulating the medical and biological framework of bioweapons for a long time. Where were we? So you can see that there's this marketplace of fear, and then that leads to new behavior.
Well, the government loves the fear, and the reason like COVID are for two reasons. Well, there's many reasons, but first of all, whenever there's an emergency, they get special spending privilege. Okay.
Yeah.
And two things happen: unfettered spending, wherever they want to do for as much as they want. Second of all, their actual budgets are hidden. You can't even tell what they spent in the first case. So when you try to go back into those books now and say, okay, let's put COVID spending aside. And how'd your budget go? We don't know. I mean, we can't fit. Well, what about this? Oh, that's COVID. What about this? Oh, that's COVID. They're spending huge amounts of money. And in some cases, I wouldn't be surprised if it went to their benefit on the, I'm not saying that they're stealing or on the side, but they're certainly directing money towards the policies that they are pro for. And don't forget, I mean, only in some cases, the government's only representing 1/3 of the people. Only 1/3 voted for them. Yet they're giving 80% of the money to all of their people. So taxpayers are paying that. Okay,
for their cronies.
Number two, when people are fearful, they listen to instructions. They listen to directions. So they like fear because fear gives them the ability.
Machiavelli said, "It's better to be feared than to be loved."
They control them like sheep. And what really irks me is, being a bit of a mathematician and a physics guy, there's questions that I sometimes ask, and I see your government here does the same thing as ours. They come up and they go, okay, there have been 2,000 more COVID cases, right? Well, I'd like to know, where were those cases? I'd like to know, what were the ages? What was the outcome? Are they minor, medium, or major in terms of conditions, right? The gravity of these. None of that stuff. They never tell you that. Or this is the stupidest number ever.
Well, deaths with COVID versus deaths of COVID.
What about total deaths?
You have a car crash.
Yeah.
And then 27 days later, you die of a hospital-transmitted infection. You have a hospital-transmitted infection of COVID-19. Yeah. It's listed as a COVID death.
What about
but you had a car crash 27 days ago. But if it's within 28 days and you die, then it's death with COVID.
I mean, in Canada, we have 25,000 people died in Canada. 25,000. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not saying COVID is not serious. But I'm saying no one ever investigates some of the other numbers here, where in a normal year, 18,000 people die of the flu. Okay, so
they put all of that.
I was going through the numbers. I was going through the numbers last week. It's zero flu.
Yes,
actually, it was 7.
They put them on the other column. They put them on the COVID column.
And statistically, it's impossible
to have
18,000 to 7.
Flu is cured by COVID.
Okay. But here's the other thing. Here's another stupid number that our government, our media always gives us. Okay, they go, 5 more people died of COVID. That brings the total to 25,600. What does that number mean? I mean, I don't care what the total is. I want to know what the delta is. Like, delta is the change, right?
Yes.
If you really want to be pragmatic or understand it, I mean, often we use the term delta for like last week we had 7 die. This week we had 4.
Rate of change is the key statistic.
Right. Yeah. We had or we had 2,000 cases last week. This week we have 1,000 cases, right? They don't do it that way.
No.
This week we've got 1,000 cases. That brings the total to 1 million cases. I'm going. That's an irrelevant number. Okay, it doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't tell you trends.
It stokes fear.
Yeah. And I said, but by the way, how about if I said this one? Okay, so now I'm going to give you 2 reports right now. This week we had 2,000 cases. 25 died. That brings the total to 6 million deaths with COVID. Right. Or this one. This week, we had 1,000 cases. They're all very mild. People are under 20. 2 of them recovered already, as a matter of fact, and they're playing ball. We had 3 deaths, but they were 90 years old in an old folks' home up in Leeds, and they were dying of other cases as well. All the other cases are from an Asian community up by Manchester. How's that report?
Yes.
Right? Same numbers, same quantities, but it gives you a little bit more reassurance. Okay, that's fine. I don't want to get there, but okay. So
incentives. The key is incentives, right?
It's telling you the truth.
If you pay the police based on number of arrests made, a number of fines issued, and the fine recoup, and the fine total recoup, then you get more arrests and you get more fines issued. They find reasons to do it. because the success metric is based on arrests made and fines issued. If you make the success metric crime prevented, or good reviews from the public you've solved their problems, and that's how you get your pay increase, then you'll see, policing the community by consent. So where is the success metric? What is the incentive? Where is the money being doled out? Well, we heard at the start that the US hospitals, for instance, were getting $39,000 per COVID death.
No, is that true? I'm not sure that's true. No,
we heard about this, right?
Hello.
Welcome, Philip Fiersoff, artist in residence. These are his pictures, and we're sitting in front of
beautiful pictures.
Yeah, thank you. I've been listening to a lecture on Nietzsche, and the idea was to get rid of the Christian moral values, right? Because people are upset with the idea that there might be this God above us that's watching us, and there's a moral precedent to be good. And
now we have the Chinese Communist Party above us watching us.
No, what happened then was that he eradicated God with a sheep and wolves theory that you mentioned. So there's suddenly this idea that you can just take morality into your own hands. So when you're taking this morality into your own hands, then you are suddenly the author of your own
destiny,
moral destiny.
Yes.
But this has happened for 100 years.
Yes.
So we got rid of this generally. There are religious people out there, but generally the atheist society has now got a moral precedent again because of the fear of God.
Oh, okay. So my Hegelian triad of you had the religious dark ages of nihilism, then you had the aspirational but deadly ideologies that said we're going to improve the human, and now I see a synthesis of the blockchain can mean we can do this democracy where we can arrive at truth.
Yeah.
You're saying that actually there's a countervailing movement to inspire fear, the fear of the plague.
Yeah.
And then get people in that fearful state, the fearful energy that you were discussing.
Moment that you're going to die tomorrow, and if you've done anything wrong, you're going to be judged for it.
Oh, so it's the sort of Russian surf, back to the Russian surf.
Yeah, they've got. I mean, society is in a fearful state, and I mean, some people are. I mean, look, I'm not scared. However, I have a lot of colleagues who are super intelligent, well educated, and they are scared. They're nervous, right? I'm not going to judge them.
Do they wear masks in their cars?
I'm not going to judge them.
They can't even go anywhere.
Well, they are worried, and they're constantly worried. And
so these are intelligent people. These are people of means.
Yeah, so everyone's different. Everyone's different. But this is, this is
like a conscience issue. You're saying
we're seeing natural selection.
Yes.
Occur right in front of our eyes.
Sheep and wolves.
100%.
So, you're a skeptical person. You're a person that has you're a man who has his own mind. Have you felt that there's a like bifurcation in society, that there's the people who conform, and are you becoming a pariah yet? Like, is your libertarianism, your nonconformism, is that leading to problems?
Well,
in terms of people who before you'd get along, and then suddenly,
that couple, what you say, you have to be careful what you say, because they will jump on you. They'll jump on you if you start saying something I just said. Is in fact, well, let's examine. All I ever say is let's examine COVID, and let's look at all the different angles. No one wants to do that. They never want to look at anything that doesn't fit their narrative. Okay, the narrative is to scare the crap out of everybody. Follow me around like a little flock of birds with some crumbs, and all society is moving back and forth, and they're all listening to it. They're all doing it, and it's amazing. Thankfully,
we heard from Jordan Peterson about the woke concept that we were talking about this week. If you go through the woke idea down and you do intersectionalism properly, and everybody has their own burden of trauma, their own burden of minority, you get back to individualism. Because everybody has the unique matrix of oppression that leads you back to the individual, because that's your burden. Then maybe you lead back to Christianity, the burden of sin or whatever. But nevertheless, the lack of thinking, as you're saying, leaves this halfway house of the identity politics, which is, you've got these groups, and we know that there are multiple groups, we don't really want to analyze it. And for instance, it's extremely discriminatory to have this conceptualization. I mean, we were looking at like counterexamples and counterfactuals, and like the ideal counterexample to show the logical weakness of the position is Michelle Obama is driving in a blackout window limo down to the White House, and she's got a white liveried limousine driver, and a white Secret Service operative guarding her. Like she's in the nexus of power in the social matrix. And then they stop at an intersection and they see a old white tramp, a vagrant, a bum, and he's got a white beard and he's like monging out of bath salts. He's like he's in hell. He's in the inferno of just psychiatric torment. And nevertheless, according to this new, because he's white and male, he inherently has this more power in the power matrix, much as he's zoned out. He's in another world and he's down and out.
But they're afraid of him.
But there's nothing she can do to get above him in the power matrix, because he's always got to be above her because of these intersectional qualities.